A heavy silence spread across space after the battle. Human ships floated among burning wreckage, their lights blinking softly. Sarek engineers worked with human crews to repair damage. For a moment, it felt like peace had come, but peace was an illusion far beyond the battlefield. Hidden deep in a dark nebula, an enormous ship drifted. It was not just a ship. It was a floating fortress, black and jagged like a mountain in space. Thousands of red lights moved across its surface like angry eyes. Inside, an enemy war council gathered. Holograms of human ships and destroyed enemy vessels hovered above a dark table. The enemy high commander, taller than any human, stood in heavy armor. His helmet was carved with strange symbols. His voice was deep and cold. "Humans," he growled, his voice echoing in the silent room. "They dare interfere." Round him, his captains shifted nervously. They had seen the power of the human fleet. But the High Commander raised his hand. "We will show them true power." Back on the UN's Retribution, Admiral Cole listened carefully to a report from his intelligence officer. "Sir, our scans show new enemy forces gathering," the officer said. "Their numbers are overwhelming." Cole stared at the hologram showing dozens of massive enemy ships forming up in the nebula. Each enemy battleship looked bigger than the Retribution. Each bristled with massive cannons. The officer's voice trembled. "Sir, they are building a fleet that can destroy entire planets." On the Sarek homeworld, people gathered around giant screens showing live reports. Alien children clung to their parents as news spread. The enemy was coming with more ships than ever before. Elders whispered ancient prayers. Sarek soldiers tried to keep order. Fear spread like fire. Back at the enemy's massive mothership, thousands of fighters prepared for launch. Their engines glowed red. Cannons rotated, loading shells the size of small vehicles. Engineers ran between giant metal halls, checking systems. The enemy high commander stood before a giant window, looking out at the nebula's swirling clouds. His face was lit by red lightning. "Send the fleet," he commanded. "Crush them." Meanwhile, on the Retribution's bridge, Cole looked at his officers. His voice was steady but grim. "We face an enemy with more firepower than anything we have seen," he said, "but we will not let them break our lines." A captain stepped forward, eyes wide with worry. "Sir, what if they come straight for Earth next?" Cole's eyes narrowed. "Then we make sure they never get that far." Out in the blackness, scout drones sent by humans moved closer to the enemy fleet. The drones recorded terrifying images. Hundreds of fighters moving in perfect formation. Capital ships bigger than cities. Weapons capable of tearing moons apart. Every few seconds, red lights blinked as enemy sensors searched for intruders. One drone barely escaped as an enemy cruiser fired on it, shot missing by meters. Inside the Sarek ship's med bay, wounded aliens rested. Human doctors treated them with gentle hands. A young Sarek child looked up at a human nurse with big, scared eyes. The nurse smiled softly and gave him a small toy. The child hugged it tight. Outside the medbay window, the stars seemed calm, but both humans and Sarek knew a storm was coming. Suddenly, human sensor station picked up new signals. Dozens of enemy ships entering hyperspace, heading straight toward the Sarek homeworld and the human fleet guarding it. Alarms blared across every human ship. Red lights flashed. Crews ran to battle stations, heavy doors sealed with loud clanks. Admiral Cole's voice came over every comm. "All hands, prepare for incoming enemy fleet. This is not a drill." In space, the first enemy ships appeared like dark ghosts, dropping out of hyperspace with thunderous flashes. Their cannons glowed blue. Enemy fighters launched like swarms of angry insects aboard the enemy mothership. The High Commander watched through cold eyes. "Burn them all," he whispered, as the enemy's massive fleet spread across the stars. It became clear. The humans were outnumbered, outgunned. Oyutamatet. But on the Retribution's bridge, Admiral Cole stood tall. He looked at the enemy fleet. On his screens, then at his crew. His voice was low but fierce. "They think we will run. They think we are afraid. Let's show them what humanity does when it stands together." The final images of Part 3 fade on hundreds of enemy ships closing in on the human line, setting the stage for the battle of survival. The darkness of space glowed with flashes of light. The enemy fleet advanced like a moving wall of steel. Their engines burned red. Their weapons hummed with deadly energy. Aboard the UN's Retribution, alarms echoed through every corridor. Human crew members ran to battle stations. Heavy doors sealed tight. Marines checked their weapons. Pilots climbed into their fighters. The whole ship felt alive, ready for war. Admiral Cole stood on the bridge. His eyes were fixed on the giant view screen showing hundreds of enemy ships moving closer. Red warning symbols filled the holographic map. The communications officer turned to him. "Sir, enemy ships will enter firing range in 2 minutes." Cole nodded, his voice calm and cold. "All ships, stand by to engage." In the black void, the first enemy fighters raced ahead of the fleet, their engines screaming like angry wasps. Human defense platforms opened fire with bright blue lasers, cutting down dozens of enemy ships. But for every enemy fighter destroyed, 2 more took its place. Explosions filled the darkness as small ships collided, fired, and died. The Sarek ship floated behind the human line. Inside, Captain Gilles and his crew watched the battle on flickering screens. They saw human fighters diving into enemy swarms, firing missiles and railguns. They saw human frigates taking heavy hits but holding their positions. A young Sarek officer looked at Gilles, voice trembling. "They fight with such fury." Gilles nodded, his eyes shining. "They are not just fighting for themselves, they are fighting for us." In the thick of battle, human pilots shouted into their coms, "Viper 1, watch your tail. Bandits at 11 o'clock. Fox 2, missiles away." Bright explosions followed every shout, and enemy fighters burst into fireballs. Human pilots gritted their teeth, dodging enemy fire, but the enemy fleet kept coming, their massive capital. Ships fired huge beams that carved through human cruisers. A human destroyer took a direct hit, breaking apart in a silent, fiery explosion. Pieces of the ship spun through space like burning meteors. On the Retribution, officers called out, "Updates. Shields at 70%. Portside batteries reloading. Enemy boarding ships detected." Cole clenched his fists. "Deploy interceptors. Don't let them reach us." Small enemy boarding ships flew straight at human vessels, trying to latch on. Human point defense guns spat streams of glowing rounds, shooting many of them down. But some got through. On a nearby human cruiser, enemy soldiers cut their way into the hull. Human Marines met them in dark corridors. Fierce close combat began. Blasters fired in the narrow halls. Explosions shook the walls. Soldiers shouted orders, fighting hand to hand. Meanwhile, human battleships focused their fire on the enemy's lead dreadnought, a giant ship with black armor. Dozens of human cannons targeted it, firing in unison. White-hot beams punched holes into the dreadnought's hull. The giant enemy ship started to break apart, but before it died, the dreadnought fired one last shot, a massive beam that sliced through a human cruiser, splitting it in two in the chaos. A squadron of enemy bombers slipped through the lines, heading straight for the Sarek ship. The Sarek crew screamed in fear, but suddenly, 3 human fighters appeared from behind. They flew in perfect formation, blasting the bombers with missiles. One by one, the enemy bombers exploded before they could reach the Sarek ship. Inside the Sarek control room, Captain Gilles watched the human fighters save them. He sank to his knees, overwhelmed by emotion. "They came for us again," he whispered. Back on the Retribution, the ship shook violently as enemy shots hit its shields. Sparks fell from the ceiling, smoke filled parts of the bridge. But Admiral Cole stood firm. "Keep firing," he roared. His eyes were fierce. "We hold the line. We do not break." In space, wreckage drifted everywhere. Burning ships, both human and enemy, floated like broken ghosts. But the human line held strong. Every time an enemy ship advanced, it was hammered by precise human fire. The first clash was brutal. Both sides took heavy losses. But as the smoke began to clear, it was obvious. Humanity was still standing. Far away, hidden sensors recorded every second of the battle. The mysterious watchers who had been studying the humans whispered in dark corners, "They are stronger than we thought. But can they survive what comes next?" The stars waited in silence for the next battle. The stars were quiet that night in deep space. Far from any planet or station, a small alien ship drifted alone. Its lights were dim, its engines were dead. A strange silence covered everything. Inside the ship, only fear lived. The crew were called the Sarek, a small reptilian species. Their green scales were pale with terror. They huddled in the control room. Sparks fell from broken screens. Smoke filled the narrow halls. Every time the ship shook, they cried out. The enemy was coming. Captain Geel, the oldest among them, grabbed the comm panel with shaking claws. He looked at his crew, eyes full of sadness and anger. "We have one chance," he said in a hoarse voice. "Push the button to send the distress signal." A soft blue light blinked on the console. The message started broadcasting into the cold black space. "Please, anyone. We are under attack. Help us." They had no idea if someone would hear them. They only knew they would soon die if no one came. Far away on the edge of a distant solar system, a human listening post floated among asteroids. It looked like a dark needle in the night. Inside, Officer James Parker was drinking stale coffee when a red light blinked on his console. He nearly dropped his cup. "Unknown distress signal detected," the computer voice said calmly. James leaned forward. The signal was weak, full of static, but he heard it. "Help us," he typed quickly, routing the signal to command. It knew this was not just another pirate attack. The fear in the voice was too real. His hand shook slightly as he pressed the final button. Back at the Sarek ship, the crew's eyes were wide with horror. From their broken windows, they could see dark shapes moving in space. Enemy ships, big and sharp like metal sharks. Their engines glowed red, their weapons charged with a cold blue light. "Shields are gone," shouted First Officer Cree. A bright beam sliced past their ship, burning another hole in the hull. The ship spun. Sarek engineer fell to the floor, bleeding. Captain Geel's heart ached. He thought of his family back on their homeworld. He thought of how his people would die if the enemy was not stopped. He looked at his crew and spoke with strength he did not feel. "Stay calm. Keep broadcasting the signal." Deep in the black, the enemy commander watched with cruel eyes. His face was hidden by a dark helmet. His voice sounded like rusted metal. "Finish them. Leave no survivors." His ships closed in like hungry wolves. Meanwhile, the distress signal traveled through space. It bounced off satellites and relay stations until it reached Earth's main military hub, a giant station orbiting Jupiter. Red alarms flashed in the control room. Generals and admirals woke up from sleep. They gathered around big screens showing the incoming message. The message repeated over and over, "Please, help us." There was silence in the room as everyone listened. Then a tall man in black uniform stepped forward. Admiral Cole's eyes were cold, his jaw tight. Looked at his officers. "Who are they?" he asked. "A species called the Sarek, sir," replied an intelligence officer. "Are a new ally, small, weak, and who is attacking them?" Cole asked. The officer hesitated. "Unknown, advanced tech, brutal tactics. Our analysis says they might be the same raiders who destroyed 3 other colonies last year." Admiral Cole's eyes darkened. He remembered the images of burning cities, of dead civilians floating in space. He slammed his fist on the table. "Ready the fleet," he said in a low, dangerous voice. "If they want war, we will show them what humanity's fury looks like." Back at the Sarek ship, the crew was almost out of hope. Enemy ships surrounded them. Their weapon systems were empty. Their power was almost gone. Sparks lit up the control room as another blast hit them. Fire spread across the deck. Captain Geel fell to one knee, coughing. "Is anyone out there?" he whispered into the comm, tears in his eyes. The message kept playing. "Please, help us." Suddenly, a strange signal appeared on the sensors. A loud alarm beeped. A young Sarek technician looked at the screen and gasped. "Captain, something big is coming," she shouted. Gil lifted his head. Through the smoke, he saw a dark shape emerging from hyperspace. It was massive. It was armored. And on its side were letters the Sarek had never seen before. UNS. Retribution. In the cold void of space, dozens of human warships arrived in a flash of light. Their weapons were hot. Their engines burned like the hearts of stars. From the command deck of the Retribution, Admiral Cole looked at the burning Sarek ship and the enemy fleet. "Open all channels," he ordered. His voice boomed across space. "This is Admiral Cole of the United Nations Space Command. You attacked our allies. Now you face us." The enemy ships hesitated. The humans did not. Fire. Brilliant beams of light crossed the darkness. Enemy ships exploded like dying stars. The Sarek watched, their eyes wide with shock and hope. Humanity had answered the call. The night was filled with fire and the fury of humankind. A dark silence covered the battlefield. The enemy ships, sharp and black like blades, floated near the broken Sarek ship. Fires burned inside the alien ship's hull. The Sarek crew huddled together, waiting for the final blow. Suddenly, a sound louder than thunder rolled through space. The enemy pilots turned in shock as bright lights appeared behind them. One by one, huge human warships dropped out of hyperspace, their hulls shining like steel mountains. The largest ship, the UN's Retribution, took position between the Sarek and their attackers. Dozens of smaller human frigates spread out like a deadly swarm. Their cannons moved with cold precision. On the Sarek ship, Captain Gil blinked through smoke and tears. His eyes went wide. "Who are they?" he whispered. First Officer Kreese stared at the giant ships. "Humans," he said softly. They came. On the enemy flagship, alarms blared. The enemy commander's dark helmet twisted in rage. "Impossible," he hissed. His sensors showed human ships locking weapons onto his fleet. Admiral Cole stood on the Retribution's bridge, hands behind his back. His eyes were fixed on the enemy fleet. "Target their lead ships," he said calmly. His voice was ice. "Leave nothing." The first human shots were blinding. Blue beams of energy and railgun slugs tore through enemy hulls. Enemy fighters tried to dodge, but human point defense guns tracked them with deadly accuracy. Of human fire destroyed another enemy ship. The Sarek watched from their burning control room. Every explosion lit up their wide, terrified eyes till they realized something. The explosions were saving them. Each blast pushed the enemy back. "Humans are winning," a young Sarek engineer whispered. Enemy ships tried to regroup. They fired back with wild desperation. Red energy bolts flashed past human ships, some landing hits. A small human corvette exploded into fire, pieces spinning away. But the human line did not break. From the Retribution, human Marine commander looked at a screen showing Sarek life signs. "Boarding team, stand by," he ordered. His voice was hard but calm. "We're going in." Human gunships dropped from their cruisers, flying straight into the chaos. They weaved between burning ships. Enemy cannons tried to hit them but missed. The gunships reached the Sarek vessel and clamped onto its hull like armored insects. Inside the Sarek ship, crew heard loud banging on the doors. They grabbed each other in fear, thinking the enemy was here. Suddenly, the door burst open, and human soldiers in black armor stormed in. Their helmets glowed with red lights. They moved fast, scanning each corner, their rifles pointed everywhere. Captain Gil raised his hands, terrified. A human soldier stepped forward, lowered his weapon, and spoke through his helmet speaker. "We're here to help. You're safe now." The Sarek couldn't believe it. The humans surrounded them, forming a protective circle. Dick started treating wounded Sarek. Marines set up defensive positions in the hallways. Above them, the battle raged on. Human warships pressed the attack, hammering the enemy fleet with relentless fire. The enemy commander realized he was losing. His fleet was in pieces. The ships tried to run, but human ships chased them down one by one. On the Retribution's bridge, Admiral Cole watched the enemy flagship turning to flee. He raised his hand. "Finish them." Single railgun shot, fired from the Retribution. The shot hit the enemy flagship dead center. The ship exploded in a silent, beautiful fireball. Small pieces spun into the darkness. Silence fell over the battlefield. Enemy ships were gone. Human ships took positions around the Sarek vessel, guarding it like steel giants. Inside the Sarek ship, Captain Geo looked at the human marine standing next to him. Tears ran down his scaled cheeks. "Thank you," he whispered. The marine nodded once. Humanity never leaves friends behind. In the quiet after the battle, Admiral Cole opened a secure channel to the Sarek leaders on their home planet. His face appeared on their screens. "This is Admiral Cole," he said. His voice was calm, but firm.
"Ow."
"We received your cry for help," he answered, "and we will stand with you until you are safe." The Sarek leaders stared at the human admiral in awe. Hope shone in their eyes for the first time in many dark days, far in the shadows of space. Hidden sensors recorded every moment of the battle. Unknown eyes watched. Cold, calculating voices whispered in the darkness. Humanity must be stopped. The battlefield was a graveyard of broken ships. Fires burned in the darkness. Human and enemy wreckage drifted together, silent and cold. Inside the UN's Retribution, Admiral Cole stood on his damaged bridge. Smoke filled the air. Sparks rained. Down. Officers coughed but kept working. Screens flickered with red warnings. "Enemy reinforcements detected," shouted the sensor officer. Cole stared at the holographic map. More enemy ships were arriving, bigger, faster, deadlier. Out in space, enemy battleships dropped out of hyperspace in bright flashes. Their cannons charged with glowing energy. They moved like hungry predators, surrounding the human fleet. The human line was stretched thin. Many ships were damaged. Ammunition was low. Medical bays were full. Fear spread among young soldiers. But Cole's voice cut through the panic. "We have come too far to fall now. Rally every ship. Pull the fleet together." At Cole's command, human ships started moving. Frigates changed positions to protect bigger battleships. Fighters formed. Tight groups to defend bombers. Damaged ships drifted behind the line, protected by their stronger allies. The human fleet moved like a single living creature, breathing, adjusting. "Ready?" On the enemy flagship, the High Commander watched the human formation. His eyes narrowed. Behind his dark visor, "They are weak," he hissed. "Crush them," he gave the order. The enemy fleet advanced, weapons flashing. The second wave of battle began. Enemy ships fired with brutal force. Blazing beams crossed the darkness. Human ships shook with every hit. A human frigate exploded, breaking apart in a cloud of burning metal. But this time, humanity fought smarter. Human bombers dove low, flying under enemy shields. They dropped torpedoes that slammed into enemy engines. Bright explosions lit up the dark. Enemy ships lost power, drifting helplessly, in one deadly moment. A group of human fighters led by Commander Hayes broke through enemy lines. They weaved between enemy cannons, dodging beams by meters. Hayes shouted into his "Come, now, hit them with everything." Missiles launched in a storm. 3 enemy cruisers exploded at once, their wreckage scattering like fiery shrapnel. Aboard the Retribution, Cole saw the enemy line weaken. His eyes flashed with hope. "They're breaking," he said, turned to his officers. "All ships, advance, push them back." Human ships moved forward with sudden, fierce energy. Cannons fired non-stop. Missiles streamed through space. Enemy ships tried to retreat, but human guns cut them down. On the Sarek ship, Captain Geel and his crew watched the tide turn. Their eyes were wide with awe. "They're winning," whispered a young engineer. Gil clenched his fist. "They are more than warriors. They are protectors." But even as victory seemed close, the enemy flagship prepared a terrible weapon. A massive supercannon that could destroy an entire city with one shot. Inside the enemy flagship, the High Commander raised his hand. "Fire." A glowing beam gathered at the front of the flagship. Energy crackled across its hull. The beam launched, cutting through space straight at the Retribution. For a moment, Everyone on the human ship froze. The massive beam came closer, unstoppable, but then a damaged human destroyer drifted into the beam's path. Its captain, injured and bleeding, gave his last order: all power to shields. The destroyer took the full force of the beam. Its shields flashed bright white, then shattered. The ship exploded in a huge fireball, saving the Retribution from certain destruction. On the Retribution's bridge, Goal closed his eyes in respect. "You will be remembered," he whispered, seeing the flagship vulnerable after firing Cole. "Seize the moment. Concentrate all fire on the enemy flagship," he shouted. Human ships aimed every gun. Missiles, railguns, and beams fired together. The enemy flagship's shields flickered, then broke. The final shots hit its main reactor. The enemy flagship exploded in a massive fireball. Shaking space, enemy ships around it hesitated. Some tried to flee, others went silent. The enemy fleet lost its leader on with it, their will to fight. On the Sarek homeworld, millions watched the live feed. When the enemy flagship exploded, they cheered. Hope spread like sunlight. In the silence after the flagship's destruction, Admiral Cole spoke to his fleet. "We have turned the tide. Hold your positions. Secure survivors." Today we showed them what it means to stand together. It's but far away, in the deep shadows of space, hidden watchers whispered darkly. "They survived this time," a cold voice said. "But the real war has only begun." The battle was over. Enemy ships drifted, burning or dead. Human ships moved among the wreckage, searching for survivors and gathering wounded pilots. A quiet sadness fell over the fleet. Aboard the UNS, Retribution engineers worked around the clock. Fires were out, but some decks were still dark. Medical teams treated injured soldiers. Bodies were wrapped and carried to cold storage. Admiral Cole stood alone in his quarters, staring at photos of fallen crew members. His eyes were tired, but his resolve was unbroken. On the Sarek homeworld, celebrations had started. Children danced in the streets. Families hugged each other. Holograms showed images of human and Sarek ships fighting side by side. But while many celebrated, Sarek leaders gathered in a hidden chamber deep underground. They watched secret footage recorded by old sensors during the battle-strained ships. Far beyond the enemy lines, dark and silent, observing the fight but never joining, a Sarek elder spoke in a hushed voice. "They are here. The ones who started it all? In the darkness between stars, those mysterious ships drifted like ghosts. Their black hulls reflected no light. Strange symbols glowed faintly on their sides. Inside, tall, shadowy figures watched recordings of the battle. One of them, cloaked in dark armor, whispered, "The humans are more dangerous than we expected. They adapt. They fight without fear." Another replied coldly, "Then we must break them before they unite the galaxy." Back on the Retribution, intelligence officers showed Admiral Cole the same footage of the unknown ships. The images were blurry, but the shapes were nothing like enemy or allied vessels. "These ships didn't fire a single shot," said an officer. "They watched the entire battle. Then they vanished." Cole frowned. "They waited to see if we would lose." "Hey, want to study us?" Second officer looked nervous. "Sir, if they have this technology, they might already be among us." Meanwhile, Sarek scientists inspected debris from destroyed enemy ships. Inside a twisted piece of enemy hull, they found something shocking: a black cube with alien writing different. From the enemy's own language, the Sarek scientists took it to Captain Geel. "This is proof," he said quietly. "The enemy was given weapons and orders by someone else." Geel's face grew pale. Then who is really behind this war? In a secret meeting on the Retribution, human and Sarek leaders gathered around a table. Holograms showed everything. They knew the secret watchers, the black cubes, and old Sarek legends about a race that had once tried to enslave the galaxy. A Sarek elder told a chilling story long ago. There was a race we called the Imbrikini. They worked in shadows, turning species against each other. Then they disappeared. Some said they died, but maybe they were only waiting. Cole clenched his jaw. "If they are the real enemy, we must find them before they find us." The shadows of space, an Umbrikini ship prepared a message. It sent a signal to hidden allies across the galaxy, ordering them to move. Hundreds of secret sleeper agents hidden on many worlds woke up and began new missions. Sabotage, assassinations, whispers of betrayal. On Earth, in the middle of the night, a government listening post received a strange coded signal. The operator's eyes widened as he read the data. He picked up a secure phone. "Sir, we have a problem." Meanwhile, the Retribution's sensors picked up new readings. A strange object drifting toward them. Salvage teams brought it aboard a small escape pod with a single survivor inside, an alien beaten and terrified. The alien gasped out his first words in a raspy voice. I know who is behind this. But they will kill me before I can tell you." Alarms blared. Sabotage bombs hidden in the pod activated. Security teams pulled the alien away just in time as the pod exploded, rocking the Retribution. Admiral Cole looked out the window at the stars. His mind raced with questions. Who were the Umbrakean? How many allies did they have? Is this war only the beginning of something much darker? In the deep blackness beyond any star, the Umbrakean leader whispered. To his kind, humanity thinks it has one. But we will turn their strength into weakness, their hope into fear. The real game begins now. The stars were quiet, but the galaxy was not. From one end to the other, whispers of fear and rumors of betrayal spread faster than any ship could fly. Sleeper agents hidden by the Umbrakean began their secret work, poisoning supplies, sabotaging ships, and spreading lies. On the UN's Retribution, Admiral Cole met with Captain Geel and Sarek leaders. They spoke in hushed tones, worried faces lit by the glow of the holographic map. "We can't trust anyone now," Cole said. "Anyone could be a spy. We must find them before they destroy us from within." At a remote human outpost, alarms blared as explosions ripped through fuel tanks. Flames lit the night sky. Soldiers ran, trying to save survivors. But the saboteur had already vanished into the shadows. A coded message was sent from the burning outpost. "The enemy is among us." On the Sarek homeworld, political leaders started fighting each other. Some accused others of working with the humans. Others demanded surrender to the mysterious Watchers. The Umbrakean's plan was working. Divide allies, turn friends into enemies. Captain Geel watched the chaos on a large screen, his face full of despair. "If we do not stop this, we will destroy ourselves." Meanwhile, aboard the Retribution, Admiral Cole ordered his intelligence team to scan every message, every visitor, every shipment. Security teams checked every corner of the ship. Fear spread among the crew. No one knew who to trust. One night, an explosion shook the Retribution's lower decks. Fire and smoke poured through the halls. Marines rushed to contain the flames. Engineers fought to keep the reactor stable. Security cameras showed a crew member planting the bomb butt when his face was revealed. It was one of Cole's own officers. Cole watched the footage, rage burning in his eyes. "How many of my people are not really mine?" he whispered at the same time. The Sarek scientist who discovered the black cube was found dead in his lab, stabbed in the heart. His research files were gone. Captain Geel clenched his teeth. "They are everywhere," he growled. But hope was not yet lost. In a secret human lab, a team of scientists worked day and night to decode the alien black cube. They finally broke through, revealing strange star maps and old recordings showing the Umbrakean manipulating other species for thousands of years. Cole and Geel watched the decrypted images. One showed a giant black fortress hidden in a dark nebula, surrounded by asteroids. Another showed a list of planets human and Sarek worlds, marked for attack. Cole slammed his fist on the table. "That's where they are hiding. That's where this ends." The two leaders agreed. They must attack the Umbrakean fortress before it was too late. Human and Sarek fleets started gathering at secret rendezvous points. Every ship, every pilot, every soldier willing to fight came together. Giant hangars, filled with bombers, marines, and supplies. But the Umbrakean knew they were coming. Far away, the Umbrakean leader ordered his fleet to prepare. Dark ships powered up in the hidden nebula. Giant cannons rotated into position. Thousands of stealth drones activated, invisible to human sensors. Meanwhile, human and Sarek intelligence agents worked frantically to uncover the last sleeper cells before the attack. In dark alleys and crowded markets, they hunted spies in deadly chases. Gunfights broke out on remote colonies. Explosions rocked hidden bases. In one final transmission, an Umberkini agent, cornered and bleeding, hissed into his communicator. "They know! They are coming!" And he took his own life before capture. On the Retribution, Cole addressed his crew. His voice was strong, his eyes filled with determination. "This is it. We end this war now.
For every world they tried to destroy, for every life they took, we fight together, human and Sarikand. We show them what it means to stand
United." The crew roared with fierce cheers. Across the fleet, soldiers prepared weapons, pilots checked their ships. Medics readied for the wounded. Above the fleet, the stars shimmered coldly, waiting for the greatest battle the galaxy had ever seen. The Allied fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the dark nebula. Hundreds of human and Sarek ships hovered in tight formations. Their hulls glowed with weapon lights. Engines burned like stars. Ahead, hidden in swirling gas and dark asteroids, waited the Umberkini fortress, massive, black, bristling with turrets and shield generators. Swarms of enemy ships poured from hangar bays like angry hornets. Admiral Cole stood on the Retribution's bridge. Captain Gill appeared beside him on a hololink. They exchanged a nod. This was the moment they had fought, bled, and sacrificed for. The order came. All ships attack. Human and Sarek ships roared forward. Fighters streaked ahead, weaving through enemy fire. Bombers dived at Umberkine turrets, dropping heavy bombs that exploded in bright flashes. Battleships fired massive cannons, beams of energy tearing through enemy hulls. The Umberkine fortress came alive. Huge cannons unleashed waves of red plasma. Dozens of Allied ships exploded, their crews lost to the void, but more kept coming. Frigates formed protective screens around human carriers. Human destroyers charged enemy lines, ramming enemy ships if they ran out of ammo. In space, debris and fire danced like deadly snowflakes. Inside the fortress, the Umberkine leader watched. In disbelief, screens showed his fleets falling apart. His eyes glowed with hatred. He activated the fortress's super weapon. A black sphere of energy formed above the station, pulsing with dark light. Admiral Cole saw the buildup on sensors. "If that weapon fires, everything here dies," he warned. "We need to hit the core now." A brave team of Sarek and human marines boarded the fortress in small assault ships. They blasted through airlocks and stormed dark halls. Heavy gunfights raged in zero-gravity corridors. Explosions lit up the inside of the fortress. Commander Hayes led the Marine team. His armor was dented, his rifle almost empty. He planted explosives on the main reactor, shouting into his cum, "Charges set, get clear." The Marines fought their way back to the escape pods, bullets and plasma beams flying everywhere. Hayes was the last to leave, firing his sidearm at Umberkini. Guards as he dove into a pod. Outside, Cole ordered every ship to pull back. "Brace for detonation," he yelled. The fortress exploded in a blinding wave of light. A shockwave of burning debris blasted outward, shredding enemy ships. Asteroids were torn apart. Silence fell across space as the fortress crumbled into a glowing field of wreckage. The remaining Umberkini ships tried to flee. Allied fighters chased them down, hunting them through the asteroid field. One by one, the enemy ships were destroyed. When the last Umberkine vessel died, a hush spread through the Allied fleet. Cheers erupted across every ship. Each other. Medics wept in relief. Pilots banged helmets together in celebration. On the Retribution's bridge, Admiral Cole looked at the wreckage. He thought of the fallen, then turned to his crew. "Today," he said, voice cracking, "we ended a darkness that haunted this galaxy for centuries." On the Sarek homeworld, millions watched the final moments live when the fortress exploded. They cried and cheered. Across human colonies, bells rang in victory. In the aftermath, Human and Sarek leaders stood side by side on a new station being built over a peaceful planet. They signed an alliance charter, promising to protect each other forever. Children of both species played together in parks. Scientists began rebuilding worlds destroyed in the war. Traders reopened old routes, a new era of hope had begun, and far beyond, in the cold darkness between stars, a few surviving Umberkini ships drifted silently. Their damaged systems crackled with dying energy. A single voice whispered in the shadows, "We will return." But now, the galaxy knew that if darkness came again, humanity and its allies would face it with unrelenting fury.